Glad to be here this morning, enjoying the cool breeze blowing. Hope I can remember what it feels like this week when it's back to 90 again. That's all right. I'll take days like we had yesterday and this morning in August any day. Love it. Thank the Lord for the reprieve. That's what I told Esther this morning when we was messaging, and I said, it's so kind of him to send us things like that in the middle of the worst time of the year. When you can't escape to get away to somewhere that is cool, he'll just send a little to you. What a blessing. All right, open your Bibles to 1 Corinthians chapter 4 this morning. I'm going to continue talking about this matter of stewardship. I've enjoyed this little study. The longer that I look at it, the more I see. And it's really important. It really speaks to the desire that most people have in their heart. Just, you hear the term, they're good people. Well, what do good people really want? Well, this matter of stewardship speaks to that on several different platforms. But it's not something that is sustainable without God. It just isn't. You can be a good person, but are you good? Even Jesus said, why callest thou me good? And so that bears looking at. 1 Corinthians chapter 4 this morning. Very familiar verse. Verse number 2. 1 Corinthians 4, verse 2 says this. Moreover, it is required, not suggested, not recommended. It's required in stewards that a man be found faithful. Faithful. I want to talk this morning about this. This is the title. You can trust the faithful steward. You can trust him. That's what everybody in this world that considers himself to be a good person considers themselves trustworthy. And they look for people who they can trust. That's something that anybody that has any pluck about them at all, if you consider yourself to be an honest man, a just person, you try to find people that are like that. You gravitate toward birds of a feather flock together, they say. And so you're always looking for somebody that's like-minded in that way. If you're somebody who is trustworthy, you don't generally like to just go and hang out with people you can't trust. Nobody has any confidence in someone they can't trust. And, this matter of stewardship, we've covered this for the last 2 weeks, and what we talked about is that it is a job that you're chosen for, and it is something that is accepted by the steward. It's, he don't not want it. But you just don't go and proclaim yourself a steward. No, you're chosen for it. And it's required that you be faithful. Well, that's a pretty broad brushstroke in the day that we live in, and especially in our religious culture that we live in, this matter of faithfulness. It's defined in a bunch of different ways, but I'm going to dig into that just a little bit. Proverbs 25 verse 19 says this, confidence in an unfaithful man in time of trouble. You can have confidence in an unfaithful man until things get serious, until it matters. But it says in time of trouble is like a broken tooth. Who in here has ever had a broken tooth? Not good. You can't eat anything hot or cold. You can't chew. Your own spit makes your tooth hurt. And it's just, you can't have any confidence in that tooth, right? For sure. But it changes your perspective and your approach to eating, talking. I seen there poor little Felicity last week. You was telling me how that, she had them loose teeth in the front for weeks, and finally she got them gone. But she was worried that everybody was going to see and make fun of her because she didn't have any teeth. Poor little thing. Well, I remember thinking that when I was a little kid. And it don't go away when you're a little kid. I imagine if my teeth ever started falling out, you see people that don't have their teeth and they won't smile. Or if they laugh, they'll cover their mouth. You always got that hand up there. Why? Because they can't have they don't have no confidence in that no more. Nope, sure don't. Confidence in an unfaithful man in time of trouble is like a broken tooth or a foot out of joint. Now, I have experienced that a bunch in my life with this one right here. And I'm telling you, it changes everything about everything you do. You know, I don't step off of anything with my right foot. Haven't since I was 20 years old. Why? Because it just might fail me. I have no confidence in it. It might land wrong and break it again. And I can't it just makes me sick thinking about it because the pain and it gags me. You ever have a pain that's like that when you think about it? It's just like, no confidence. You want to be a person like that other people feel that way about you? Well, of course not. Who does? Who wants that to be their reputation and that to be the label put on them by society in general? Better not trust that guy. I heard of a guy this past week. It's kind of a long story, but he has a business and he's looking for investors. So someone that he talked to called this guy I'm working for because he had suggested him as a reference for this potential investor. And this guy called him and said, he's starting this business. He's looking for investors. And what do you recommend? And he's like, well, I ain't investing in him. Well, why not? And he's like, well, because I'm his neighbor and I know him. I'm not investing no money in him. Not that way. And that's bad. It's bad to have that reputation, to have that precede you in your community or just throughout your life. You don't hardly ever outrun that. It takes a lifetime of what? Faithfulness. To make that dim down. And in time. It just takes time. I've known people that, will get born again and they have lived a rough life and they're so tired of everything that comes with that life that they're ready for it all to be expunged and behind them. And we all know that the Lord forgives that way. But people don't. And it takes a long time for people to outlive their reputation and it changed to something else. And the number one thing required, faithfulness. Faithfulness. Not vacillating all over the place. Faithful. Let's talk about a few things that it means. It means constant. Constant. You say, well, what is that? How would that apply? Constant. It doesn't ever quit. There's never an interruption in it. There's never a hiatus. There's never a sabbatical away from it or a vacation. It's constant. Never ends. It is the spearhead of everything that you are. Not just in religious matters. No, in secular matters too. It becomes the essence of who you are. You're constant. You never change. Constant, not fickle. They got different labels for it now. Bipolar or multiple personalities and so on and so forth, but just fickle. One day you like it, one day you don't. One day you're all about it, one day you're not. The next day you're gonna start something new. The next day you're back to this thing you was doing back then and you forgot about the thing yesterday and just, well, you can't have confidence in somebody like that. You can't depend on someone like that. You can't trust someone like that. And see, this is really what I'm getting at. A steward is someone that you can trust. And you say, well, trust and confidence, it's synonymous or whatever. Well, there's some similarities, but they're not the same thing. They're not the same thing. Faithful, conformable to the truth. Faithful. Well, you say, we automatically, we're in church, we're sitting here in Sunday school, so our mind immediately is going to go to matters of God and matters of spiritual things. And, is faith if conformable to the truth? Well, that obviously is the most important truth to be conformable to. But there's a lot of things that happen to you in life, and it's been one of the things I have faced as a challenge in raising kids, is trying to make them, you can't make them understand, but make them accept the fact that there's things in life you can't do nothing about. It's just a truth. You're not going to get to do all the things. If you're lucky throughout your life, as time and the years roll by, you might get to do some of the things, but not all of them. There's things that I see and I have thought about throughout my life. I remember being a boy, and honestly, my goal in life, I wanted to fly airplanes. That's what I wanted to do, and I wanted to do that so bad, and had no kind of idea of how that would ever transpire or whatever, but that's what I wanted to do. And then, life rolls by and happens, and the airplane thing never took place. And then my eyes started going sideways a little bit, kind of my eyesight started failing, and I realized that it would be really difficult for me, even as an adult now, to pursue something like that. Would I still like to fly? Yeah, I'd love it. I think I really would. And to realize that goal that I had when I was young and actually see it come to fruition, that would be neat. Is it ever going to happen? I'm just going to go ahead and say that it's not. So will I ever know what it's like to take off and land in an airplane myself? Nope. Do I grieve the loss of that? No, not really. I can pay $200-300 and go get on an airplane and see what it feels like to take off and land. That's good enough. I got other things that are more important now than that. But just being conformable to the truth. You see these people that waste their whole adult life pursuing some pipe dream fantasy idea that it's never going to happen. And you waste your life in the good that you could do because you won't conform to just the truth of life. A faithful person is not that way. They're willing to submit to the truth. Truth in general. And another thing about that is that they don't retain the right or the privilege, the self-claimed privilege, to decide what can be true and what can't. You throw something up in the air and it's going to come down. You ain't going to be able to ever do anything about that. So how silly would it be to spend your whole life trying to prove to everybody that it can be done? You'd say, well, that person's insane. Yeah, can you trust them? Can you put confidence in them for something that's important? Absolutely not. They're nuts. There ain't no telling what they're going to take off with on that. And then what? Yeah, see? Faithful, true to the covenant. What covenant? Any covenant. Covenant's one of those things that is not really part of our culture anymore. A covenant, the importance, the sobriety, the seriousness of a covenant vow. It's what marriage always has been, is a covenant. And the world, by and large, does not consider that anymore. And that's why there's no faithfulness in a lot of marriage. You say, well, I've never been unfaithful to my wife. Okay, maybe not with another person. But faithfulness is more than just following a simple set of rules. Just because the rules say, I can't be with some other woman when I'm married to her, doesn't mean that I can't be unfaithful. Because there's the covenant that I'm being faithful to. I'm not just being faithful to my wife. I'm being faithful to a covenant that I made with God about the thing that I was entering into. You know, it ought to be considered that way with a loan for a truck or a car or a house or agreement that you make. If you borrow something from someone, you borrow somebody's weed eater. You ought to, if you're a faithful man, you ought to consider that as binding as a covenant, that I will bring it back. When I said I'll bring it back, I will bring it back in the condition that I brought it back, or that I borrowed it in. And I will, you can trust me that when you go to find it next time, it'll be right where you gave it to me. That's a covenant. You're faithful to the covenant. Yeah. Faithful, true to his word. Well, that's goes without saying. You're not a liar. You don't bend that truth that you aren't willing to conform to. You're true to your word. Even if it costs you everything you have. True to your word. Faithful, firmly adhering to duty. This is another thing that we don't talk about in our culture no more. This matter of duty. Ain't my job. Well, maybe it's not. But do you not possess any sense of duty to anyone? You say, well, I got to look out for number one. You don't have no sense of duty to yourself either. Because if you did, you'd realize what that makes you to everyone else. And you'd do something about it. You're not going to have a sense of duty to yourself and not to others. It's just not going to happen. Because in the long run, are you really doing yourself any favors? Are you doing anything to help you? Absolutely. You're destroying yourself with your narcissism and your selfishness and your pride. No. You firmly adhere to duty. You don't avoid duties. You don't try to get by with the least amount that you possibly can do so that you can sleep at night. No. Duty. You have a duty to everyone. It ain't just the people that you deem, okay, I have a duty to you. No. I have a duty to the people out there that I don't even know. I have a duty to others for their children. You know, if you've seen somebody else's kid trying to cross 60 highway out here at the junction, and if you've seen little John running across the road up there, would you be like, well, ain't my kid. Wonder where their parent is. Wonder where his mom is or his dad. Of course not. You wouldn't do that. Why? Duty. Duty to who? Him, his dad and mom, his grandparents, everybody. I mean, or would you? Faithfulness means adhering to duty, adhering to it firmly. And faithful means loyal. Now, the world puts a lot of emphasis on loyalty. But loyalty as they define it, and loyalty to whom they deem worthy of loyalty. But loyalty is a quality that puts you in a different bracket. And it's not something that you can just say, you know what, I'm going to be loyal from now on. Because that's what I want people to know about me. I'm loyal. Why would you want to be loyal? Because you want people to trust you. You want people to have confidence in you. Why? Well, because it speaks to your character. I mean, who wants anybody to think ill of them or think that you are a less than human being because you can't have no confidence in him, can't trust him? He's a thief. He's a liar. He doesn't keep his word. He don't care about anybody but himself. No. A good steward is required to have these characteristics, but you need to remember this, not as just a learned performative behavior. Okay? That's why I say you can't just have a set of rules that you just adhere to, and that makes you all these things. You can't fabricate character. You have to live it. And it has to come from somebody good. And that's not you. And that's not me. It has to be Christ in me. See? Okay. Not a learned behavior, but as the essence of who they are as a person, both inside and outside of religion. There are people who don't want to be considered dirtbags anymore. And they'll turn to religion thinking that that label now changes the way the world sees them. But they don't, I hate to say it this way, but they don't do the work. They don't do the work. Being faithful is a lot of work. There's a lot of work involved with being faithful. It's the thing that qualifies and identifies anyone as worthy of trust. But you need to remember this about faithfulness. It isn't something that can just be possessed by self-proclamation. You ever hear somebody say, I'm the most honest man that you will ever meet. If I say it, my word is my bond. You can trust me. I am not a liar. Dad always said, you better watch that guy because he'd be the first one that'll lie to you or deceive you in some way. And, a lot of times that really is the case. It's really true. Hate to say it, but it really kind of is that way. You can't just declare, I'm a faithful man. I looked up this, and I won't read it, but I looked up the definition of character in good old Noah Webster, and it defines it, and I'm paraphrasing, but it defines it as other people's assessment of you. That is what character is. It's not what you assess of yourself. See, that's the problem with this matter of self-confidence. Is self-confidence important? Yes, it is. But that is part of most people's process in order to gin up this visual in their mind of, I'm a faithful person. And I can have confidence in me because I know I'm faithful. And I don't care what anybody else says about me. They're wrong. I'm faithful. See where I'm going with that? How many times have you heard somebody say something like that? I have. I've said it myself. It's not something that can be possessed by self-proclamation. Faithfulness comes, it isn't something that comes by default because you are religious. Just because you go to church don't make you a faithful person. The church house is full of people who are not faithful. They're not faithful. They don't have a sense of duty. They don't firmly adhere to duty. They don't spend any kind of time trying to be true to their word or being true to a covenant that they've made with anyone, God included. They don't make any effort to conform to any truth. They'll run around Jack's barn out there to believe a lie before they would stand right in front of you and just believe the truth. Accept it. So going to church or being religious does not make you by default faithful. So it doesn't matter if you come 12 times a week to the church house. That don't make you faithful. There's a lot of emphasis, and rightly so, put on being faithful to church. It's part of the life of a believer. I don't feel like you can exclude it and then have the life God wants you to have. You can't. But just coming to church every time the doors are open don't give you the golden ticket. It just don't. And lots of people, that's as deep as their faith is their faithfulness to attend church. A lot of people get put in positions of authority and leadership and control and influence because they'll just come. And they're as disqualified as the devil himself. And they ruin people's lives. They sure do. Seen it happen. They ruin them. They turn them away from God. They make people twofold more the child of hell than they already were. This was the Pharisees. Couldn't find more faithful people to the rules. But they spent no time in the rest of their life doing anything to make them stewards of anything. They were just stewards of the law and judgment. That's what they did. And that's what a lot of people sitting in churches do too. The thing they feel that they are given to be stewards of is the rules and judgment and making sure it happens. That's not what God asked you to do. That's not the covenant that you made with him if you were born again. It's not something that comes by default because you're faithful in some things. Because if it was left up to us, this is what it would evolve into, okay? It would evolve into being things that we like. That's why some people can come to church for 40 years and be faithful and be horrible people because they like to go to church. But if it wasn't something that they didn't like, if it was something they didn't like, they wouldn't do it. It evolves into something that you're comfortable in or with. Because being faithful, like I said, it's hard. It takes work. It requires you to do things that you are not comfortable with. The world tells you that in all their self-help stuff and you know, all the ways to a better you is, you know, don't pursue things that take you out of your comfort zone. They say, yes, you should push the boundaries. You should do things that make you uncomfortable. But do people do it? Tell me how many people put themselves in situations and that they don't like. Ain't nobody does that. I mean, you don't see very many people that's willing to do things the hard way just because. Voluntarily. No, they don't. It'll evolve into something that you're confident in that you won't fail in. Oh, I'm faithful. Yeah, in these things. Yes, and I've done well at it. Okay, we'll do this thing over here. Yeah, it's out of my comfort zone. That's not in my wheelhouse. I'm better at this over here than that. You know, why don't you get him to do that because he's better at that than me? See, this is what we do when we'll choose the path of least resistance every time. If your faithfulness is based on just performance alone or making it up yourself or declaring it yourself. Faithfulness takes work. That's what I said at the beginning of this whole thing 3 weeks ago. The steward, he works. His life is basically defined by a variety of work. Selfless, serving work. For the gain of someone else, not himself. For the benefit of someone else, not himself. For the praise of someone else, and not himself. He can remain completely anonymous in the whole thing and be just fine with that. And let somebody else stand up and get the prize. Why? Because he was chosen to be the steward of it. He understands it. It's just work. It requires sacrifice. It requires invisibility. Nobody knows who you are. So, did the good get done that needed to get done? Yes, that's all that matters. Did someone else level up? Did someone else's life get saved somehow? Because, yeah, it's good enough. That's good enough. To God be the glory. And move on. That's what faithfulness takes. Willingness to be invisible. And here's something else. It requires contentment. I don't know. This has been one of the hardest lessons that I'm still learning in my life. You're told from the time you're young, you start getting asked questions. What do you want to be when you grow up? What are you going to do with your life? You get in high school and people start asking you, what are you going to do after you get out of school? You going to school? What are you going to do? What are you going to do? I've always thought that was the dumbest question to ask a kid because they don't even know what clothes they want to wear today. You're asking them what's their plan for their future? Get up tomorrow. That's, yeah. You know, try to participate in anything fun that anybody is doing. That's yeah, sounds like a great goal to me. And so this gets burned into the mind of a person that if other people are going to look at me as someone that is confident, that they can trust with their things, essentially Would I be a good steward? What would qualify that in me, in other people's eyes? Then I have to be successful. I have to look successful. I have to have visible gains in life. So other people look at me and say, that young man has got it going on. That guy right there ain't no dummy. That guy right there's got a head for business. Look at that. He ain't even 30 years old yet, and he's already got 2 successful businesses. And well, good for you. It's important to be ambitious. But it's not what defines you as faithful or trustworthy or a good steward or someone that anybody else can have any confidence in at all. It's just not. You'll develop this attitude of, okay, what I have is good enough for today, but I need something else. This needs to be better. I need something different. Our house, we've lived in our house. We talked about this morning. We've lived in our house for all these years. We raised our kids in that house. It's served us just fine. Is it the finest home in Wayne County? Absolutely not. Does it need a whole new redo? Yes, it does. It needs a facelift bad. But can I not be content in my home? Just because it don't look a certain way? Well, you put all this money into this place and I still don't like the floor plan. Okay, I understand that. I'm a builder. It's what I do, so I get that. But what am I willing to sacrifice in order to have this thing that's going to then, what, make me content? Will I be content with that thing once I get it? No, you won't. No, I won't. No. And I don't know, just been thinking about that. And if the Lord has blessed me, and He has, in my life with, things are a blessing, but they're not the blessing. They're not. All my kids was home last night, and my little grandkids. And we grilled out, and it was a pretty day, and we played ball in the yard, and sat around on the porch drinking coffee and enjoying the breeze and just good conversation. And here is my blessing. There they are. You know how many of them are looking at my house saying, man, it'd be nice if you could put some new siding on this place. Not a single one of them. Why? Because they're not there for the house. Not there for the house. And so, if I'm to be faithful, I have to be content. I don't have to be. I will be. And if something happens someday and our situation changes with our house or our property or something we would move or sell or whatever, that's yet to be seen. But it's not the thing I'm pursuing with everything of my, that's not my ultimate goal so that I can finally reach contentment. You just be content. Be content with such things as you have. I've done that throughout a lot of my adult life. We ought to get one of these or some of these kayaks, them kayaks. Now, I like kayaking on the river. I do. I like it. So I built a rack and we bought a whole slew of kayaks. And we went on a couple trips here and there with the kids and this and that and the other, but went kayaking with David last week on the river and got me and Wyatt's kayaks off the rack. And I had to pressure wash them because they were so covered in algae and just dirt and cobwebs and dirt dauber nest. Why? Because we hadn't had them off that rack in over 2 years. But I had to have them because that would just be so much fun. And then there they said I mow around them every week. So did it bring me contentment to own these things? No. No, it didn't. No. But you know what does bring me some contentment? The other day, one of my son-in-laws asked me, sometime when we go to the creek, you care if we borrow some of them kayaks and take them? Absolutely. Well, that gives me more joy than having them for myself. But you understand what I'm saying? Contentment. But most importantly, intentionally It isn't something that comes by intentionally directing that faithfulness. I'm sorry, I've misread this. Faithfulness is something that we must do by intentionally directing that faithfulness towards God, primarily. First, a sense of faithfulness to God will then result in a faithful man to the people around him. And you can't base your faithfulness to God on a man, on a pastor, on a father, on a church, or some hero that you've set up, or, it can't be someone on this earth. Can they inspire faithfulness in you? 100%. What do you think that great cloud of witnesses is comprised of? People that inspire faithfulness, for sure. But if your faith is put and based and rooted in someone, then what are you going to do when that person slips this mortal coil and they're no longer here? Well, your faith will become unmoored, untethered. I know people that this has happened to. Our faithfulness cannot be powered by the faithfulness of others alone. We don't desire faithfulness in ourselves or in others as much as we crave confidence in ourselves and confidence in others and from others for what they can perform or in service to us. See, it's a matter of confidence. That's why faithfulness don't get talked about, but confidence does. You can do anything if you're confident. Confident in who? Yourself. Well, where does confidence come from? It comes from other people looking at your life and saying, I can have confidence in that person. Why? Because of faithfulness, see? So how are you supposed to generate confidence in yourself? I don't know about you, but I am the hardest person I have to deal with in my life. Me. So it's really hard for me to generate confidence in me when I've let me down more than anybody else has in my life. And it's the same way for you too. But we want confidence, and we want other people's confidence in us. And we just kind of avoid faithfulness because faithfulness demands and requires more than confidence can receive. See? So, what is the end result of this? It's trust. Trust. Hebrews 3, verse 12 through 14 says this, Take heed, brethren, lest there be in any of you, now this is where we miss it, okay? An evil heart of unbelief. Unbelief in who? It's God. Faithfulness is supposed to be directed towards Him. And if we don't believe that that will produce what we need, then we direct our faithfulness to something or someone else. And that is unbelief in God. That's what that is. An evil heart of unbelief in departing from the living God. There it is. But he said, but do this, exhort one another daily while it is called today. Daily, while it is called today. I think he means the day in which you are existing in. And not tomorrow, and not yesterday. Not tomorrow's imaginary problems or yesterday's problems that have grown or shrunk or whatever, been redefined or whatever. No, today. Exhort one another daily while it is called today, lest any of you be hardened by the deceitfulness of sin. For we are made partakers of Christ if we hold the beginning of our confidence steadfast to the end. You can possess confidence, but it only comes from one place. And it only is in one thing, and that is God. The beginning of your confidence. You remember when you were born again? and you had confidence that you were born again. That was the beginning of your confidence. Where did it happen? At the feet of Jesus, the one who gave it to you. You didn't generate this yourself. It came by surrender. It came by submission. And he gave you some confidence. In what? In him. And he said, for we are made partakers of Christ if we hold the beginning of our confidence steadfast to the end. It's the only way we're going to be faithful. That's the only way that you're ever going to have any confidence, that anyone's ever going to have any confidence in you and be able to trust you. It's faithfulness. You can trust a faithful steward. He's a good steward. He's faithful. He's all the things that inspire confidence and trust, that merit confidence and trust. But it doesn't come from anything that he has made. It's who he has confidence in, who he has put his trust in, who he is faithful to. It isn't I'll scratch your back and then you scratch mine. No, he's faithful to God. You can trust that man. Why? Because his confidence is in God. Trust is the fruit born from confidence in the right things and the right people. Trust is able to be had in others when you see them putting their confidence in the right things, and that's how you and I can and will be someone that can be trusted too. So, are you a steward that people can trust? That's what I want to be. Amen.